First strike. High Admiral Ventral of the Meridian Empire stood aboard the bridge of the Celestial Dominance, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the dim light of distant stars. The massive command ship, nearly 15 kilometers in length, represented the pinnacle of Meridian engineering, a perfect fusion of organic crystal technology and antimatter power systems that had helped them dominate this sector of space for millennia. Another primitive vessel, High Admiral, announced First Observer Crystal, her voice carrying the distinctive musical tone of the Meridian upper caste. Approaching from heading mark 276.3. Initial scans suggest combustion-based propulsion systems. Ventral's secondary eyes flickered in amusement. The Meridians had long since abandoned such crude methods of space travel. "Show me," he commanded, his crystalline fingers dancing across the neural interface of his command chair. The holographic display materialized before him, showing a vessel that seemed almost laughably small compared to the Celestial Dominance. Its hull was dark and angular, lacking the elegant crystalline architecture of Meridian ships. Thermal readings indicated multiple heat signatures consistent with chemical rocket engines, and its hull appeared to be made of primitive metallic alloys. Species designation, Ventral inquired, though he hardly cared. The Meridian Empire had encountered countless emerging civilizations over the centuries. All had either submitted to imperial authority or been summarily dealt with. Unknown, High Admiral. The vessel's configuration doesn't match any in our database. However, we're detecting unusual energy signatures. They're faint, but they don't align with the ship's apparent technological level. Ventral's primary heart quickened slightly. Something about this didn't feel right. In his 3 centuries of service, he'd never encountered a species that used primitive technology alongside advanced energy systems. Launch a probe. Standard first contact protocols. The probe, a crystalline sphere housing the Empire's most sophisticated scanning technology, streaked toward the unknown vessel. As it approached, something unexpected happened. The primitive ship's response was immediate and precise. A burst of energy, so brief it was almost undetectable, reached out and touched the probe. There was no explosion, no dramatic display. The probe simply ceased to exist. "Impossible," Crystal whispered, her exoskeleton paling to a lighter shade of blue. The probe's quantum shielding, it just failed. Ventral rose from his command chair, all 4 of his eyes now fixed on the approaching vessel. "Launch a combat squadron. Maintain distance," and he never finished the order. The space around the human ship seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from a sun-baked crystal. Suddenly, where there had been one ship, there were now dozens, each identical to the first, each broadcasting the same primitive energy signatures. Multiple contacts. Crystal's voice had lost its musical quality, replaced by the sharp tones of alarm. We can't distinguish the real vessel from the duplicates." "Impossible." Ventral repeated his subordinate's earlier assessment. "Their technology is too primitive to." The human vessel, the real one, struck first. A beam of concentrated energy, unlike anything in the Meridian database, lanced out from its bow. Instead of impacting the Celestial Dominance's quantum shields directly, it seemed to phase through them, as if the shields weren't even there. Where it touched the crystalline hull, the energy didn't burn or explode. It simply caused the crystal structure to stop. Hull breach in sections 17 through 23. The ship's organic AI reported calmly. Crystal matrix failing at the quantum level. Unable to regenerate. Ventral watched in horror as portions of his mighty vessel simply ceased to exist, the perfect crystalline structure breaking down into its component atoms. The weapon wasn't destroying their technology, it was unmaking it. "Launch all squadrons. Full battle protocols," he commanded, his voice carrying the full authority of the High Admiral of the Meridian Empire. "Show these primitives the power off." The human ship moved again, but this time differently. Its primitive chemical engines flared to life, pushing it into what should have been a suicidal charge directly at the celestial dominance. Ventral almost laughed. No species had ever survived a direct confrontation with a Meridian capital ship. Then he saw it. The human vessel's apparent suicide run was a feint. As his gunners tracked its approach, the space around his ship literally bent. Somehow, the humans had created a localized gravity lens, using the celestial dominance's own mass against it. The mighty warship's crystal structure, designed to channel and amplify energy, became its weakness. The gravitational distortion caused the entire vessel to resonate at its fundamental frequency. All hands, abandon ship. Ventral's order came too late. The celestial dominance, pride of the Meridian Empire, shattered like a crystal goblet exposed to its resonant frequency. As emergency pods launched in every direction, Ventral had one final thought. They had gravely underestimated these humans. Their primitive technology wasn't primitive at all. It was a carefully crafted deception. As his escape pod streaked away from the debris field that had once been his command, Ventral received one final transmission. It was in perfect Meridian language, each musical tone precisely replicated. Greetings, High Admiral. Welcome to First Contact with Humanity. We look forward to more productive discussions in the future. The Art of Deception. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the Combat Information Center of the UES Trickster, watching the holographic replay of their encounter with the Meridian warship. Around her, the bridge crew maintained their stations with practiced efficiency, their apparent antiquated control interfaces concealing quantum-linked neural processors. Replay the crystal resonance sequence, she ordered, her eyes fixed on the moment the massive alien vessel shattered. Focus on their emergency protocols. The AI complied, highlighting the patterns of escape pod launches. Each trajectory, each automated response, told a story about Meridian tactical doctrine. Their technology might be advanced, but their thinking was rigid, predictable. Commander Rodriguez, what's your assessment? Chen turned to her tactical officer, who had been studying Meridian response patterns for the past 3 years. They're exactly as our deep cover anthropologists predicted, Captain. Rodriguez replied, manipulating the hologram to show multiple angles of the engagement. The Meridians have optimized their technology and tactics to the point of perfection, but that perfection has become their weakness. They've lost the ability to innovate in combat. Chen nodded, remembering the classified briefings that had led to this mission. Humanity had discovered the Meridian Empire 15 years ago, but instead of making immediate contact, they had chosen a different approach. Hundreds of anthropologists, disguised as merchants from other species, had infiltrated Meridian space. They studied everything: technology, culture, military doctrine, and most importantly, how the Meridians thought. Status of the surveillance drones? Chen asked, turning to her sensor officer. All 37 remain undetected, Captain. The Meridians still haven't realized that our duplicate ships were actually advanced sensor platforms. They're tracking the High Admiral's escape pod and beginning their standard emergency response protocols. The human strategy was working perfectly. The Trickster, despite its seemingly primitive exterior, was one of the most advanced vessels ever created by humanity. Its chemical rockets were actually carefully designed gravitic drives made to mimic the heat and radiation signatures of primitive combustion engines. Every aspect of the ship was a deception, designed to exploit the Meridian's technological arrogance. New contact, the sensor officer announced. Multiple Meridian vessels approaching at FTL speeds. Configuration matches their rapid response fleet. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Right on schedule. Tactical. Prepare for Phase 2. Let's show them another magic trick. The Meridian response fleet dropped out of FTL in a perfect formation, their crystalline ships arranging themselves in geometrically precise patterns. Their tactics were flawless, their positioning optimal for engaging a technologically inferior opponent. But they were fighting the wrong war. Signal detected, communications reported. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Send the prepared response. Chen ordered. "Make sure it's properly degraded to match our technological level." The message they transmitted was deliberately garbled, appearing to be the desperate plea of a primitive species that had gotten lucky in its first encounter. The Meridians, predictably, responded exactly as expected. Their fleet began a standard containment maneuver, their ships moving to surround the seemingly isolated human vessel. They had no way of knowing that each piece of debris from their destroyed flagship contained microscopic quantum sensors, creating a perfect three-dimensional map of their movements. "They're charging weapons," Tactical reported. "Standard Meridian combat doctrine. They'll try to disable us with precision strikes to demonstrate their technological superiority." Chen's smile widened slightly. "Deploy the resonance field." The tricksters' true weapons were nothing like the energy beam they had used against the flagship. Instead, thousands of quantum-entangled particles began spreading through space, each one programmed to interact with the Meridian's crystalline technology in subtle, devastating ways. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Meridian ships fired. Their energy weapons, instead of launching devastating attacks, simply fizzled out. The crystalline matrices that powered their technology were being disrupted at the quantum level, but so subtly that their diagnostic systems couldn't detect the cause. "They're switching to secondary weapons," Rodriguez reported, watching the Meridian fleet's increasingly desperate attempts to engage. Still no indication they understand what's happening. Chen watched as the mighty Meridian response fleet gradually lost cohesion. Their perfect formation began to break down as ship after ship reported mysterious systems failures. No catastrophic explosions, no dramatic battles, just the quiet, inexorable failure of their supposedly perfect technology. "Message from Fleet Command," Communications announced. "The Hyperion and Deception have completed their objectives in Sectors 7 and 12. All primary Meridian response bases have been neutralized." This was humanity's true first strike. Not a single massive battle, but hundreds of carefully coordinated engagements across Meridian space, each one designed not to destroy, but to shatter their confidence in their technological superiority. "Begin broadcast," Chen ordered. The message that went out was no longer degraded or primitive. It was crystal clear, delivered in perfect Meridian language. "To all Meridian forces, you have witnessed a demonstration of human capabilities. Your technology, while advanced, has become predictable. We offered peaceful contact, but your empire chose arrogance. Consider carefully what has happened here today. This was not a battle between primitive and advanced civilizations. This was a lesson in the danger of assuming technological superiority equals tactical advantage. We await your response." As the message echoed across Meridian communication channels, Chen knew that the real battle was just beginning. The Meridians would adapt. They had to. And when they did, humanity would be ready for Phase 3. Counter Protocol. The Imperial War Council of the Meridian Empire convened in crisis for the first time in 300 years. The crystalline chamber, designed to amplify and focus the thoughts of the Empire's greatest minds, now echoed with discord and fear. High Admiral Ventral stood before the council, his once pristine exoskeleton still showing stress fractures from his emergency evacuation. The holographic displays around him showed the devastating results of humanity's coordinated strikes. 47 capital ships disabled, 12 major defense installations neutralized, and the Empire's most advanced technology rendered useless. "They were watching us," Ventral concluded his report, his voice carrying the weight of this revelation. "Every trade vessel we dismissed as insignificant, every primitive merchant we ignored. They were studying us, learning our weaknesses." Supreme Archon Keliveri, the eldest of the council members, leaned forward. Her crystalline form had grown so perfect over the centuries that it was almost completely transparent. How did we not detect their true technological level? The answer came from an unexpected source. Junior technologist Merlin, barely a century old, stepped forward. Permission to address the council. After receiving a nod, she activated a new holographic display. Because they knew exactly how we would scan them. Look at this analysis of their ship designs. The display showed the human vessel's architecture in detail. What had appeared to be primitive metal alloys were actually complex metamaterials, designed to interact with meridian scanning technology in specific ways. Their chemical engines contained precisely calculated element combinations that would register as primitive combustion systems to meridian sensors. They didn't just hide their technology, Miralyn explained, her enthusiasm overwhelming proper protocol. They built it specifically to exploit our assumptions. Every primitive feature was carefully engineered to take advantage of how we think. Impossible, one of the elder council members declared. No species could understand our technology well enough to. But they did. Ventral interrupted, his military rank allowing him to break protocol. And now we face an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves. In orbit above the Meridian homeworld, automated defense systems suddenly activated. A single human vessel had appeared, making no attempt to hide or disguise itself. Its hull was sleek and obviously advanced, bearing no resemblance to the primitive ships from previous encounters. The vessel transmitted a single message. The game of deception is over. Shall we discuss terms? In the council chamber, the message played on all frequencies. Ventral recognized the voice. It was the same one that had taunted him after the destruction of his flagship. But this time, something was different. The humans weren't hiding anymore. They're demanding direct negotiations, Supreme Archon, Kellevery announced, her voice carrying both concern and curiosity. They claim to have a proposal that will benefit both our species. It's another deception, several council members argued simultaneously. We cannot trust. We cannot afford not to trust. Miralyn interrupted, earning shocked looks from the elders. Look at this data. In every engagement, the humans deliberately avoided causing casualties. They disabled our ships but ensured emergency systems remained functional. Even their quantum disruption weapons were calibrated to preserve life support while neutralizing offensive capabilities. Ventral moved to the center of the chamber, his military authority adding weight to his words. The young technologist is right. The humans could have devastated our empire. Instead, they chose to teach us a lesson. The council chamber erupted in debate, but a new transmission cut through the discord. The human vessel in orbit was broadcasting on all frequencies, using technology that somehow bypassed every Meridian security protocol. People of the Meridian Empire, a human voice declared, we apologize for the deception, but it was necessary. Your civilization has achieved incredible technological advancement, but you have lost something precious along the way. The ability to adapt, to think beyond established patterns. We did not come to conquer or destroy, but to help you remember how to evolve. The message continued, but Ventral was no longer listening. He was watching Miralyn's face as she studied the human ship's energy readings. The young technologist's expression showed something he hadn't seen in a Meridian for centuries. Pure, unbridled curiosity. Their technology, she whispered, more to herself than the council. It's not just advanced, it's different. They're not following any known development path. They found another way. Supreme Archon Kellevery raised her hand, silencing the chamber. Perhaps, she said slowly, her ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries, it is time for the Meridian Empire to remember how to learn. As if in response to her words, the human vessel transmitted detailed technical specifications, not of weapons or defenses, but of hybrid technologies that merged human innovation with Meridian precision. It was an offering, a bridge between two fundamentally different approaches to understanding the universe. They're not trying to defeat us. Miralyn realized, her voice filled with growing excitement. They're trying to wake us up. The council chamber's crystalline walls seemed to pulse with new energy as the implications became clear. The humans hadn't just challenged the Meridian Empire's military might. They had challenged its very way of thinking. And in doing so, they had offered a path forward that no one had considered possible. Breaking point. The experimental laboratory aboard the Joint Human Meridian Research Vessel Synthesis hummed with activity. Captain Sarah Chen watched through reinforced observation windows as Marilyn, the young Meridian technologist, worked alongside Dr. James Rodriguez, her former tactical officer. Their collaboration had produced remarkable results, but today something was wrong. The crystal matrix is destabilizing again, Marilyn announced, her exoskeleton flickering with frustration colors. The human quantum algorithms are causing cascade failures in the geometric structure. Rodriguez adjusted holographic controls with practiced ease. It's not the algorithms. The crystal's trying to optimize itself into a traditional meridian pattern. We need it to remain adaptive. 3 months had passed since the initial confrontation, and the alliance between humans and meridians was proving both promising and problematic. The synthesis represented their first attempt at truly merged technology, and it was fighting them every step of the way. Incoming transmission from the frontier, communications announced. Priority 1. The holographic display shifted, showing a region of space along the border of Meridian territory. Multiple ships were appearing from what looked like tiers in space itself, vessels that matched neither human nor Meridian design patterns. The swarm, Chen whispered. Everyone knew about them. A hostile species that had been probing both human and Meridian space for centuries. Until now, they had never launched a full-scale attack. All their preliminary strikes, Rodriguez realized, they weren't just testing our defenses. They were waiting for us to commit our forces to this joint project. The swarm vessels moved with horrifying efficiency, their biological ships adapting and evolving in real time as they encountered resistance. Traditional Meridian crystal ships shattered under their assault, while human vessels found their technological advantages quickly countered by the swarm's rapid evolution. They're learning from both our species, Marilyn observed, her scientific curiosity evident even in this crisis, using Meridian precision against Meridian ships and human adaptability against human vessels. Chen's mind raced through tactical possibilities. The swarm had chosen their moment perfectly, attacking while humanity and the Meridians were still struggling to integrate their technologies and strategies. But perhaps that very weakness could become their strength. Marilyn, she called out, your latest crystal matrix experiment, the one that keeps failing because it won't stay in a fixed pattern. Could we replicate that on a larger scale? The young Meridian's exoskeleton shifted to deep thought colors. You want to intentionally create an unstable system. That goes against everything my people have ever. Exactly, Rodriguez interrupted, catching Chen's thinking. The swarm is adapting to beat both our strategies separately, but what if we gave them something impossible to adapt to? Something that doesn't follow either of our patterns. The next hour was a blur of activity. The synthesis experimental technology bay was converted into an improvised weapons laboratory. Marilyn's failed experiments became the template for something entirely new, a hybrid weapon that combined Meridian crystal's precision with human chaos theory. We can't stabilize it, one of the Meridian engineers complained as the prototype took shape. The quantum field keeps shifting unpredictably. That's the point, Chen replied, watching the energy readings fluctuate wildly. We're not trying to create a perfect weapon. We're trying to create organized chaos. The first test nearly destroyed the laboratory. The second test actually did destroy the laboratory, but in a way that proved the concept would work. By the third test, they had something unprecedented, a weapon that was simultaneously precise and unpredictable, structured and chaotic. Fleet Command confirms multiple swarm breakthroughs. Communications reported. They're advancing on core systems in both human and Meridian space. Chen looked at her mixed crew, humans and Meridians working together, each bringing their own strengths to the crisis. Launch all squadrons. New tactical protocol. Operation Synthesis. The battle that followed would be studied by both species for generations to come. Human ships, their systems partially crystallized with Meridian technology, moved in formations that seemed random but contained underlying mathematical precision. Meridian vessels, augmented with human chaos theory processors, executed maneuvers that would have been considered heretical months ago. But it was the synthesis itself that turned the tide. As it engaged the swarm directly, its hybrid weapons created patterns of destruction that defied analysis. The swarm's biological ships tried to adapt, but found themselves caught between order and chaos, precision and unpredictability. Their adaptation algorithms are failing, Rodriguez reported, watching the tactical display. They can't find a pattern to evolve against because we're not giving them one. The swarm vessels began to retreat, their biological computers overwhelmed by the impossible task of predicting the unpredictable while maintaining perfect precision. But something unexpected was happening to the human and Meridian forces as well. The crystal matrices, Marilyn observed with wonder. They're evolving on their own, not just adapting. They are finding new configurations we never considered. Chen watched as her fleet's technology spontaneously developed in ways neither species had planned. The forced merger of human and Meridian engineering had created something greater than either, a technology that could think for itself, grow, and evolve while maintaining its core purpose. The synthesis itself seemed to hum with new energy as its systems synchronized in ways their designers had never imagined. It wasn't just a hybrid anymore. It was the first of something entirely new. Evolution of war. The Meridian Council chamber had changed. Where once crystalline perfection had dominated, now organic curves melded with geometric precision. Human holographic interfaces flickered alongside Meridian neural links. Supreme Archon Calvari's transparent form seemed to shimmer as she addressed the unprecedented joint session of human and Meridian leadership. 1 year ago, she began, her voice carrying both authority and wonder. We thought ourselves the pinnacle of civilization. Today, we stand humbled and enlightened. Captain Sarah Chen, newly promoted to admiral, stood alongside High Admiral Ventral. The former adversaries now shared command of the combined fleet, their differences becoming their greatest strength. The swarm has been driven back, Chen reported, activating a holographic display that showed the extent of their victory. But more importantly, we've confirmed they're capable of communication. They're requesting diplomatic contact. The chamber erupted in discussion, but Marilyn's voice cut through the noise. The young technologist, now head of the Joint Development Division, had earned the right to speak freely. The synthesis project has evolved beyond our expectations, she announced, her exoskeleton shifting through colors of excitement. The hybrid technologies we created aren't just tools anymore. They are teaching us new ways of thinking. Dr. Rodriguez, working alongside her, manipulated the holographic display to show their latest discoveries. The merged human Meridian technology had developed its own patterns of evolution, combining the best aspects of both species' approaches while transcending their limitations. We're seeing crystal matrices that can adapt without losing stability, he explained. Human quantum algorithms that achieve Meridian levels of precision while maintaining flexibility. But the real breakthrough isn't in the technology itself. It's in what it's showing us about the nature of progress. The display shifted to show the synthesis, now the flagship of the combined fleet. The vessel had evolved far beyond its original design, its hull a perfect blend of human and Meridian engineering. But more importantly, it had developed capabilities that neither species had anticipated. The ship's neural network, Marilyn continued, has started generating its own innovations, not just combining our technologies, but creating entirely new approaches. It's as if it's teaching us how to transcend our own limitations. Supreme Archon Calvary rose, her ancient form catching the light in new ways. Perhaps this was the true purpose of our meeting, not just to overcome our differences, but to discover that our greatest strengths lie in combining them. The evidence was undeniable. Throughout both human and Meridian space, the hybrid technologies were transforming society itself. Meridian cities, once monuments to crystalline perfection, now pulsed with organic energy. Human settlements, previously focused on constant adaptation, had found new beauty in geometric precision. The swarm's retreat wasn't just a military victory, Chen observed. They withdrew because they encountered something they couldn't categorize or counter. Genuine evolution. Not just adaptation, but transformation. Ventral, his once rigid military bearing now more fluid, gestured to a new set of holographic projections. Our long-range sensors are detecting similar technological patterns emerging in other species. The merger of our civilizations isn't just changing us. It's changing the fundamental dynamics of this sector of space. The chamber's mood shifted from celebration to contemplation as the implications became clear. The conflict that had begun with humanity's calculated deception had led to something far greater than either species had imagined. We propose. Chen and Ventral spoke in unison, their voices carrying the weight of their combined authority. The establishment of the synthesis protocol. Not just an alliance between our species, but a new approach to civilization itself. The proposal was revolutionary. The combined fleet would become a force not for warfare, but for fostering technological and cultural evolution throughout known space. The synthesis project's successes would be shared with any species willing to embrace true change. Even the swarm would be invited to participate, their biological adaptation capabilities offering new possibilities for advancement. The very force that had threatened to destroy them would become part of their continuing evolution. This is not the end of our journey, Supreme Archon Kellaveri declared, her ancient voice carrying new energy. It is the beginning of something far greater. We have learned that true advancement comes not from perfecting what we are, but from becoming something more than we ever imagined possible. As the chamber erupted in approval, Chen caught Miralin's eye. The young Meridian technologist was already sketching new designs, her movements blending human intuition with Meridian precision. In her work, Chen saw the future they had created. Not a future of perfect order or constant change, but one of endless possibility. The synthesis hummed in orbit above, its hybrid systems resonating with the combined achievements of two civilizations that had learned to transcend their own nature. It was no longer just a ship, but a symbol of what was possible when different paths converged to forge something entirely new. The war that had begun with deception had ended in transformation. The future that awaited wasn't one of victory or defeat, but of continuous evolution, a future where the only constant was the endless potential for growth and change.